Hey, what's going on? Is this tracking my face? I can't tell. Is it? I think so. Okay. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. I haven't been making videos really recently because I just haven't felt like it. I'm sick of myself and I've been shooting film. We'll talk about that later. Learning to like develop it and scan it. Went okay the first time. I have some work to do. But what I am here to talk to you about is a camera I've been shooting for the last about 3-4 weeks. It is this guy right here, the Sony A7C. Now, as you guys know, I hate Sony cameras. I had an A6000 and an A6300 back when I first started shooting. To be honest, they were pretty good cameras. I have some good images off of them. One or two are hung in my house. No problem whatsoever. But they just kind of lack soul, and the colors are crappy, and I don't know, they just felt like computers, so I've always avoided them. I've always like kind of gravitated towards cameras that make me want to pick it up, like Fuji cameras or Olympus cameras, or even more practical cameras ergonomically, like Lumix cameras. I just really enjoy them. But I've been putting off grabbing this camera, and I finally picked it up because the reality is, and I'll put a picture up right here next to an X100T, this camera is super small for a full frame camera, really small. And when you pair it with the 24mm lenses, I'm sorry, let me back up. With the new G Master lenses, like the 24, the 40, and the 50, they're pretty small. They're no bigger than really a Micro Four Thirds or an APS-C camera. So then it begs the question, why not? And so I've been using this the last 3 weeks, and I want to share with you, I'm going to be brief. I'm not going to make this a long video, but I want to share with you a few things that I don't like and a few things that I do like. And I'm going to start with the things that I do like, because I think this is important. And a couple of the things I don't like are also very critical to whether or not you should keep or buy this camera or not. So the things I do like. First, it's its size, right? You take this lens hood off, this is a pretty small camera. I mean, you're not getting anything near this small in full frame anywhere. Now, of course, the catch here is that lenses are important, and thankfully Sony and some Sigma lenses do fit the bill where they have decent speed apertures or decent wide aperture glass that's not overly huge. If you get into some of the big G Master stuff, like the 51.2 and that kind of, the lenses get big and it gets comical, but the size is small. Two, the ergonomics, this will be a pro and a con, are actually pretty good. This fits my hand pretty well. Not perfect, but pretty well. I'll talk about that in a second. The button layout is actually really, really good. If you look right here, you've got this scroll wheel and you've got this scroll wheel, and that's pretty cool. And this AF on button is perfectly placed. Speaking of the AF on button, the way they have this set up out of the box is the way I've set up my Olympus cameras, my Nikon cameras in the past, is where if you're at AFS, so single focus, and I like to do this a lot, I focus and then I recompose with AFS, it's on the shutter. But they have this AF on button set to autofocus continuous tracking. So you set it up like in the crosshairs, if you will, and then you smash that button and it'll track that. And Sony's tracking is phenomenal. This camera has awesome tracking. And so, you know, I would just put it with my eye, and if it's somebody I'm tracking, I put the crosshairs on the subject, I smash it, and then I can just focus on my composition. I can move it around, and I don't have to worry about, am I in focus or am I not? I just have to make sure, okay, is the subject in the frame where I want it, or if they walk through a certain spot that I'm trying to catch them, all that, that's fantastic. The image quality on this, it's a full frame sensor. I mean, you guys know that. It's a big sensor in here. Image quality is fantastic. No issues whatsoever. Again, I'm not using this for super heavy video use where I need like 10-bit, 422, and that kind of stuff. The camera quality, the images come out of it are really, really good. The color science, they updated it in this, along with the ZV-1 I'm talking to you on, and the color science is good. It's really, really good. So no problems there at all. Flip screen, right? That's good for video. I like that. Battery life is absolutely fantastic, like very good, especially for prior Sony mirrorless offerings. This is a really good option. So that's kind of the good. Now let's talk about the bad. I don't really care about this so much, but some people do. It's a single card slot, so you don't have any redundancy there. The Ibis in this camera is not fantastic. I mean, nowhere near what Olympus or Panasonic and Micro Four Thirds do. And I would say it's behind what Panasonic's doing in their full frame, certainly behind what Canon and Nikon are doing in their full frame as well. I would say they lag the most. It's not useless. It's okay. It's just not good. The ergonomics. I told you this was a pro, but it's also a con. As you guys probably noted, I've added this this small rig bracket here for two reasons. When I'm scanning film, I use the L bracket into my Arca Swiss plate tripod, but also my thumb would fall off this thing right here, and it just became a little uncomfortable. And so I added this, and it makes it bulkier, but it's definitely worth it, and it's easy to take off. Small rig, by the way, they put the tools inside the actual L bracket, so you can take it off and on and not have to go like bring a bag of tools with you, which is really, really awesome. Let's see what else. A negative. Okay, now this lens right here has an aperture ring, so it doesn't really apply to the lenses that have aperture rings, but a lot of them don't. I have the Zeiss 55-1.8 that doesn't have an aperture ring, but I like to have access to the exposure triangle the entire time. I'll set my aperture, I'll set shutter speed, and then I kind of roll through ISO to set exposure, or if the scene calls for like a fixed high shutter speed, you know, I'll move with aperture and ISO. But I like to have access to all three aspects of the exposure triangle. Now again, when you have an aperture ring, you've got it here, then you've got shutter speed here, and you can do ISO here. Not bad. But when you have a lens that doesn't have the aperture ring, you have only access to two, because there's only two wheels here. And that gets a little bit annoying. Yeah, I'll set, like what I have to do is I'll set my aperture first with the wheels, and then I set my custom function, or custom dials if you will. When I hit down, then now instead of this being aperture, this turns the shutter speed and this is ISO. It's a little bit like clicking through buttons. I don't know, it's not great. The menu button's in a weird spot. I understand why they had to do that, so there's that. But here's where it's almost a deal breaker for me. And it's this thing right here, this EVF. The window to the camera, your connection with the camera is ergonomics and button placement, but one of the biggest ones is this right here. And this EVS sucks. It sucks for two reasons. It sucks because the little piece right here does very little to actually block out light. So if it's bright, and I've had this happen, I was shooting in a backlit like portrait shoot, I was like this, and light was still getting in here, and it was getting in the screen, and I couldn't really see, and so it relegated to me almost be like a back screen shooter, like, you know, Manny Ortiz, he does that a lot. The second thing is the magnification inside this viewfinder is small. I have terrible vision, but I have contacts that make my vision really good, and so I can see it, but it's like I'm kind of hunting around. Once you use like a Nikon Z6 or an X-T3, X-T4, or even anything with an OVF, by the way, like the D780 I had was fantastic, or even some of the Leica stuff, using like this is really a downgrade in the experience, and that sucks. And I guess given the size and what they're jamming in here, I guess they had to make exceptions somewhere. I just wish they could bump the magnification a little bit and just do a little bit more with this, so the eye cup actually does something to block to block the sunlight a little bit. So there's all of that. And I guess at the end of the day, here's the question. You buy this because of size, and when you keep to these lenses, it totally makes sense. But as soon as you go to other lenses, the body doesn't really matter. And so you always have the option to keep it small, and that's the benefit of this. But when you start going bigger, does the EVF and the ergonomics around having control of all three aspects of the exposure triangle, where does that play a role? And that's kind of where I'm stuck. The autofocus is fantastic. I don't have to even think about it. Like, that's a game changer. But you put bigger lenses on this or whatever, and it's not ever really truly pocketable, right? Like, could I jam this in a coat pocket? Yes, I probably could. And that's cool. But like, you have to stick to these lenses to do that. And if you're gonna shoot with something that's truly a pocket camera, like a Ricoh GR or a Fuji X100, or even if you want to use a ZV-1 as a pocket cam, would you rather have your big camera be ergonomically superb, so when you go on those photo-specific trips that you're not hindered by those things? That's a question I'm still trying to answer. And the question is do you want to go to an A7 IV that just came out? It's got the flip screen, it's got the newer sensor, it's got better ergonomics, and yes, it's a little bigger, but not that much bigger really. And so I think that's something you have to weigh out. But I would say Sony in general, the colors are much better now, and their autofocus is second to none, and they've gotten a lot better, and I actually really like this camera. I just got to decide, is this the one I'm keeping, or do I want the A7 IV? I don't know. Actually, why don't you guys help me make my mind up? Help me understand where I want to end with this camera. In the comment section below, if you have this camera, had this camera, you want this camera, kind of knowing what I'm going for, right? Like a pocket cam setup and then like a main cam setup. Would you value and prioritize the size? Or would you say, no, like your main camera should have the good ergonomics that you need in a real camera? So this is my review of the A7C. It's real quick. I just do this all in one take. I haven't done multiple takes of this. This is my feelings after using it for 3 to 4 weeks, and just want to share them with you guys. Here's some photos I'll put up at the end that I've taken, if I can find them. I switched iPads and iPhones and stuff, so I got to go find them in my Google Drive probably, or off of a solid state drive. But if I find them, I'll put them up right here with some music, and yeah, the image quality is great. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you in future videos for sure. I got some stuff coming up. Talk to you soon. Peace.